Tourist came too close to the edge of a cliff when he lost his footing and fell over the side. Down he went, scratching and clawing to save himself. You've heard the story before. Just when he was about to go out of sight, and just before he plummeted down into that ravine, he grabbed for a scrubby bush, which he held onto tightly with both hands. He wasn't letting go. Filled with terror, he called out toward heaven, "Is there anyone up there? Is there anyone there?" And a calm, powerful voice came out of the sky and said, "Yes, there is." The tourist pleaded, "Can you please help me? Please, please help me." The calm, serene voice replied, "Yes, I can. I can help. What's going on?" "Well, I fell over the edge of the cliff and I'm hanging on here, just holding onto this bush, and that's about to let go. Can you please help me, and quickly?" The voice from above said, "Certainly. Do you have faith?" Yes, I have a strong faith." The calm voice replied, "Well, in that case, simply let go of the bush and you'll be all right." The tourist looked around after a tense pause, and then he yelled into the sky, "Is there anyone else up there?" Now, it's one thing to talk about faith, but it's quite another to act out that faith in your life. Hebrews 11, that great chapter on faith, begins with this verse. Now, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. It might well say, seeing is believing, but God says, believing is seeing. Faith is simply trusting God to turn our hopes into reality. Nothing happens until somebody believes it's possible. What do you see in your own life? Do you have a dream, a vision? What impossible thing is God going to do in your life? Consider the story of Abraham, a great story. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he didn't know where he was going, but he would later receive it as his inheritance, he obeyed and went, even though he didn't know where he was going. Hebrews 11:8, read it. It's the story of faith. You know the story. Abram was living in the land of Ur, and he was now 75 years old. God tells him that he is going to send him on a journey, and he doesn't tell him where he's going, and he doesn't give him a roadmap. You see, faith is obeying, even when you don't understand it, but it's just knowing that God has called you to it. Now, there are a lot of people who want a guarantee of success before they try anything, but in my own personal experience, life doesn't usually work in that way. Faith always involves risks. God wants for you to trust him. The world says base all that you do on how you feel. Well, what happens when you live your life? It's based on how you feel. It doesn't go too well. You end up being manipulated by your changing moods. You seesaw backwards and forwards because you feel different from day to day. We all do. Now, a mark of maturity is when you live your life by commitments rather than by feelings. I like the example of Joshua when he came to the city of Jericho. Another great story from the Old Testament. Now, Jericho was a safe, secure, walled city. So here's Joshua and his people. They feel called by God to enter that city and take it. He could have said, as he arrived and there's this big wall, "We can't do that. There's no way we can get into that city." And then there was God's plan. Strange one at that too. March right around that city once a day for 6 days. Oh, and do it in complete silence. And then on the 7th day, march around that city 7 times. And then Joshua said to the people, "When I give the signal, shout as loudly as you can and watch as the walls tumble." Now, it's been calculated that the distance each time that they walked around that city would have been about 2 kilometres. Not a huge city by any means in our time. But it was by faith that the walls of Jericho fell, and that's what we want to look at after the people had marched around them for those 7 days. And we can read about that again in Hebrews, that great chapter 11. Look at the verse. "I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours." That's Mark 11:24. Faith is thanking God in advance. It's believing that God is already doing what you're wanting him for your life. in the present, right now. The answer's already on its way. Let me ask you today, are you faced with some walls in your life? What are you doing about it? Do you feel like giving up? Is there another way, an easier way? Today I want to encourage you to use whatever faith you may have to tackle those walls. In fact, Jesus said that you only need a small amount of faith, about the size of a mustard seed. That's pretty small. That's enough. As the old saying goes, if God has brought you to it, he will bring you through it. Today, have faith in God. And if you're struggling with your faith, allow me to encourage you to speak to him about that very point in your life. Psalm 37:4 says this, take delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. Good news. The Message puts it like this, the Message version. Keep company with God. Get in on the very best. Always good advice from the good book. Have a wonderful week. May God bless you richly.